Hello, ghouls, and welcome to Brave the Basement. I'm your host, the Ghoul That Rules. If you enjoy getting a little scared, ghost stories, haunted houses, a believer in the supernatural, or maybe even a skeptic wanting to look at things from a different perspective, then this is the show for you. Today's episode is sponsored by Black One Jack 2 video game streaming. And joining us again in the studio is Blackjack. Hey, Blackjack, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing pretty good.
Real excited to have you back again. So, have I ever told you the story of what happened to me at Moody's Light?
No, and what's Moody's Light?
So Moody's Light is a ghost light, and this light is in Francisville or Rensselaer area in Indiana. So what had happened was, back about 100 some years ago, this old man named Old Man Moody, he came home one night after he was working out in the fields, and he found his entire family slaughtered, his wife and his children. So he leaves the house and he grabs a lantern and he went looking for this murderer. And the story varies. So some people believe that he actually killed himself that same night, and some people believe that he searched for this murderer for years and then decided to kill himself. So how he killed himself was he hung himself from a tree. So when you go to the road that he lived on and you park by the tree and you blink your lights, Moody's Light will appear. People believe that that light is either A, his spirit, or it is the lantern that he used to walk around.
Now, does the light move? Like, you know how some lanterns would have handles to them. And is it moving or is it still?
So it's really interesting that you asked that question. So I have been there several times, and I've seen the light, because you're looking down a road over a field, and I've seen the light just to spin there. And then I've seen it do other things as well.
Can you tell me what does it do? Because since you've been there a couple of times.
Okay, so I'll just start from the beginning. One night, me and a bunch of buddies decided that we was going to head out to Moody's Light. And as we got out there, I had never been there, so this was my first trip. And we're sitting there in the car, and we pull up to the tree stump. And a friend of mine, he flashes the lights from his car, and he shuts the car off. And we don't see anything. And we sit there for about a half hour. And then from each side of the road, we'll say, off in the distance, you start seeing these red lights. And they start coming in and out of like what seems like a central point that they just disappear into. And my buddy turns to me and he says, "It's starting. We're going to see the light."
So it's a red light. So it's like a red.
That's how it started.
That's how it starts?
That's how it started. It started with these red lights coming in and out of like a central point. And then all of a sudden, a white light kind of comes. And it's no bigger than what a star looks like in the sky. And it started getting a little bigger. And then it started getting a little bigger. So by this point, no one in the car is speaking. We're all focused directly on this light. And we sat there in complete silence for a good 30 to 45 minutes without speaking. And the light started getting bigger and started getting bigger. And then eventually, the whole entire inside of the car was lit up at like daylight. But when you looked out the window, all you seen, like the passenger window, all you seen was darkness. But inside the car, it was bright as day. Now here came the freaky part. So as we're watching this and we're observing this, the driver, my buddy who was driving, his window was down. Out of nowhere appeared this man. And this man was wearing old coveralls, tattered coveralls, and he was dirty. And he pulls his head down to the car window, and he veers in, and we got to look at his face.
What did he look like?
You could see where his eyes, his nose, and his mouth, and his chin would normally be. But he had no face. But he had a face. Does that make any sense?
Not really, but
It was just a blank face. I'm not saying he didn't have eyes. I'm not saying he didn't have a nose. Because you could see where those impressions...
where it would be?
Exactly. But you couldn't make out the feature. You couldn't draw this guy's face. He's had no face.
So it kind of reminds you of like a Slender Man. If that might be later on in the future, we'll cover Slender Man. But like, you know how his face is, like how he has the indent.
Exactly. That is a very good description. And he veers in the car and he says, "You all need to leave. It is not safe here tonight."
That's creepy.
So we all look at each other. And then we look back to the man and he's gone.
Just like that.
Gone.
I have a question. Okay, before, everything happened, is there like any rules that you need to follow? Like, you know how other games, like the Three Kings we did like a week back ago, how there's these rules you have to follow. Is there any rules for this light?
So the only thing I was told, other than parking at the tree stump and flashing your lights, is just how you get it started, was when you pass the cemetery, because you're going to pass the cemetery, you're not supposed to cuss.
Okay.
Once you pass the cemetery.
Okay.
Okay? Well, we cussed after we seen this man. So we broke that said rule.
That's bad.
So here's what happened. So the guy disappears. And we're like, we're out of here. Right? That was creepy. This dude had a blank face. We couldn't even describe it. He disappears. The light's gone.
The light disappears.
The light disappears after we noticed that the man was gone. It's gone. It doesn't look daylight inside the vehicle anymore. It's not suspended above the field. It's just completely gone. So we're out of here. We're leaving.
Okay, so the light's gone. Like, what do you guys do next? Like, what after everything was settled and done, and after all the arguing and cussing at each other, what happened?
We took off down the road, and we're flying out of there. And we come to this curve. And as we're coming up to the curve, the power to the car shuts off. All power. We lose the lights, we lose the engine, we lose power steering, everything gone. And we drove smack dab into the middle of a cornfield. And the car was dead. So my buddy who was driving, obviously he asked, "Hey, is everyone okay?" And once we, established that everyone was okay, no one was injured in this, we're trying to decide, well, what are we going to do? Well, let's try to start the car.
And guessing the car didn't start.
The car doesn't start. Not only does it not start, it doesn't even click. So if you've ever heard a car that you're trying to start and you turn it over, sometimes it'll click but won't start. It wouldn't even do that. Nothing.
So how many years ago was this?
This was about 21 years ago.
Okay.
So when the car wouldn't start, obviously we popped the hood. And we're looking to see maybe, a battery cable had came off or maybe the starter had come unplugged. We couldn't see anything. It was dark. We did have a flashlight, but it was still dark, so we couldn't see anything. So then we had to make a decision. Do we try to walk to a house and get help? Or do we stay in the car and wait till morning to go get help?
So what did you guys do? Did you guys stay there, or did you try to get help that same night?
Well, we talked about going and getting help, But then we remembered that man that we spoke to.
So you didn't want to leave.
Yeah, because he said, you guys need to get out of here. It is not safe tonight. And so that was the topic of conversation between us. Was, what exactly did this guy mean? We're in the middle of a cornfield. Do we go wandering off into the darkness? Or do we bunker down inside the car, roll up the windows, lock the doors, and wait till daylight?
I'd probably stay in the car where it's safe.
That is exactly what we did. So imagine, if you will, a bunch of guys who claim to be extremely brave, too scared to go walking in the dark because some guy just freaked them out. So we ended up staying in the car, and we wake up the next morning, and the car starts.
Are you serious?
The car starts. We weren't able to back the car out of the cornfield. A couple of us had to get out and push the car. But we were able to get the car back on the road, and we headed home.
Do you know if the car had any problems after that, or is that...
Well, see, that was the interesting thing. Was a good friend of mine happened to be a mechanic.
Uh-huh.
And just out of pure curiosity, we took the car to him and explained to him what happened, and he couldn't explain it. He said it didn't make any sense.
So you said the battery was good, engines, everything's, the whole electric wires are good.
Everything appeared fine to him. Never had a problem with the car after that. So the question was, who was the guy?
What happened to the car? What happened to the light?
Who was the guy? Why did the car stop, right? Like you were saying.
Yeah.
We believe the guy was Old Man Moody.
Do you think he was there to protect you guys, to help you stay safe?
Well, he definitely warned us to get out of there. And that's the next question. What was he warning us against?
Maybe it could be like two spirits, if you think about it. If the murderer... Now, do we even know what happens to the murderer?
No, according to the story, the murderer is never found. Well, we don't know who the murderer was.
So the murderer could have been killed by Moody, because maybe Moody found him, then killed him, and then he maybe had something like nothing to live for, so he killed himself. That could be an option. That could be something. I think there could be two spirits there, Moody and the murderer, and Moody's always in this, cycling of trying to find the murderer.
Yeah, and so like what you said with the cycling, and this is what we see a lot of times with ghosts, is whenever you have a haunt, a lot of times the stories and experiences that people have tend to be very similar in the same, we'll say, haunted house, right? So if you have a haunted house, and so like I explained in the very first episode that I had heard walking up the stairs and back and forth in the hallway. And this was also, told by a bunch of my aunts. So it almost seems like a ghost a lot of times will cycle through or reenact or do the same thing over again. So my theory always was that the night that his family was murdered, that he talked to somebody on that road and warned them to get out of the area. It wasn't safe because a murderer was in the area.
I mean that could be an option too. There's a lot of things you could do with this whole story, and there's so many possibilities if you think about it.
And then the last piece of this is being stuck in the car. So I was told about this by my friends as we were driving to go see the light, was don't cuss once you pass the cemetery. And I've never got an explanation for that. And obviously we cussed, and we didn't make it home that night. Now we were safe. We didn't die, obviously, or I wouldn't be here telling this story. But we couldn't go home, and we spent the entire night in the middle of a cornfield after just speaking to a guy who's been dead for over 100 years.
I mean, can't be better than that.
Now, like I said earlier, I have been there multiple times. I can't even tell you how many times I've been there. And that was the only night I had seen the man. Now, the thing that I always enjoyed about going to the light was I've never failed to see it. So every single time I've went, the light has appeared. But why that man came to us that night, I'll never know.
I don't think we'll ever know.
I mean, I've even thought, well, maybe it happened to be the anniversary of either the night that he found his family slaughtered, or maybe it was the anniversary of his death. I don't know. I don't have the dates. All I know is what we seen that night. Now, we're actually planning a trip, hopefully this year, early next year, to go back. And I'm inviting Blackjack to come with me. We will be taking some audio samples, making a few comments. If anything noteworthy happens, I'll keep recording anything that we're saying as things happen. If anything cool happens while we're there, we're definitely going to share it with the Brave the Basement ghouls out there.
I'm excited, honestly. I'm very excited to go down there and check this whole thing out. I mean, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's like I said, I've never failed to see the light.
I'm just hoping the man doesn't come. And it's like, hey, I remember you.
I would love for the man to come.
I would not. I don't want the man to come.
Can you imagine if we caught that while recording this interaction?
That would be something. That would be something.
Now, if any Brave the Basement ghouls have been out to Moody's Light and would like to share their experience, we'd love to hear it. Well, Blackjack, before we get off here, let's remind the listeners again how we can find your video game stream.
You can find it on Twitch and YouTube, Black One Jack 2. And Ghoul Who Rules, thank you so much for letting me be on this podcast. See you guys later.
All right, guys. So if you'd like to become a Brave the Basement ghoul, be sure to share this show on social media. Go to bravethebasement.weebly.com and sign up for our newsletter to get all the latest news and updates when each episode has been posted. If you have a ghost story you would like to share with us, you can reach us at bravethebasement@gmail.com. Your story could make it on a show and be featured on the website. If you have an eerie ghost photo you would like to share, please email us and include a description, and your photo could be added to our photo gallery, which I would strongly suggest everyone to check out because I do have some pictures posted, one of Moody's Light and some pictures that came from my grandma's house. And that brings us to the end. We hope that we brought you just a little fright. And remember, when you were up late at night and you hear something in the other room that just doesn't seem right, it's okay if you need to turn on a light to protect yourself from things that go bump in the night. I'm your host, The Ghoul That Rules, and I hope you join us again. Until next time.